to day 1 of the Manhattan Project, where we saw Kidnap.
So given the fact that this is the inaugural episode of our movie review challenge Manhattan Project, there's going to be some kinks that will be worked out. There's going to be some aspects of our film reviews that will change over time or be added or whatever. So just bear with us. This is how we're doing it today. It might not be how we're doing it tomorrow, but let's get into it.
So normally we're going to try to do some vlog footage that shows our journey to the theater to see each movie. In this case, we didn't get time for that for Kidnap, but just to let you guys know, on Thursday we went to go see The Dark Tower, and then, also saw Kidnap. We probably paid for it.
So Kidnap is a wide release, long shelved and delayed. This movie was supposed to come out years ago, and then again, and then again, and again. They kept moving the release date. Finally out. Thriller, starring Halle Berry as the leading lady, mostly in a car the whole time. That's like the big high concept conceit, is that her son gets kidnapped, and then it's mostly just her driving. It's kind of like Taken with a woman in a car, but she's a normal mom. She's not like ex-operative CIA, anything like that. Let's take a look at the trailer.
My son's been kidnapped. Calm down, just need to wait. I'm gonna call it in immediately.
Where's my son?
Marco!
Hello!
Found you, you son of a...
Marco! Hello!
Marco! Where is my son?
Kidnap.
Personally, that's the kind of movie where I get like a little bit excited about. I kind of like that sort of elevated genre fair stuff. I'm a big fan of all that Liam Neeson bullshit that's been coming out the last couple of years, so I was pretty decently excited.
Kidnap to me was really blandly written, really blandly executed, low-budget thriller that just kind of barely stays afloat thanks to some surprisingly good pacing and extremely focused linear plot development. Evan?
So I pretty much agree with that. My one addition is that I think there were a couple moments of suspense in there that I appreciated, but you're right, for the most part, fairly rote, some issues with the direction, and...
Rote is this movie's middle name.
And overall, it's basically just the propulsive pacing that keeps you interested.
So the best part of Kidnap for me is how committed it stays to its sort of real-time plot development conceit, where, the kid gets kidnapped in the beginning, she jumps in the car to chase them, and the movie almost never cuts away from the action. We get, what's presumably an hour and a half time, and it just happens. And that's, to me, kind of the best part, the best thing they have going for them. The worst part to me is pretty much everything else in this movie, because nothing else here is original or exciting or new or inventive or well made or whatever.
I'm curious, what did you think of sort of the villain introductory scene in this movie? There is a part after like a solid 25 minutes of chasing, they kind of meet each other face to face, and I actually did appreciate some of the filmmaking choices that went down in that meeting.
The problem with that, and which is my problem with a lot of this movie, is I just find it so ridiculously unbelievable, where no, they wouldn't have pulled over in a little ravine or whatever they're at and had this weird dialogue exchange where maybe one of the women that's in the kidnapper's car is going to go in Halle Berry's car, and maybe she should trust her or not, and the male kidnapper is just silent and just looking at her, not knowing what to do. No, I think realistically, and I thought maybe they reconcile with this issue later in the movie when we find out what the operation's really about, realistically, that kid would be killed or thrown out of the car immediately after they saw how much trouble Halle Berry was getting.
Sure.
Was giving them.
But
and I know you got to get past that. I know, but that's sort of my issue. Is that like if I wanted to buy into the movie more, if I trusted it, that scene would be really interesting to me. Because I'd be engaged. I'd be like, oh, this movie's smart. I'm very curious what they're gonna show me. What clues can there be for when later we find out why they're actually kidnapping a kid and why they're so committed to fucking keeping this kid in the car, even though she's chasing them and there's such a huge risk of them going to jail because of this now. Why is this happening? But since I didn't really buy in that the movie was going to be smarter than me and show me something, and sure enough I was right, it does not give you anything at the end to make you think like, oh, that's why this happened. I wasn't really enthralled in that scene. In fact, it kind of came at a point where I had just reached my peak of like, really? This is how much she's going to chase them on the highway and like choose not to ram them because she's afraid of her child's safety, but still just like follow them. So it happened a little too late maybe. Maybe if it happened 10 minutes earlier and they pulled over and they had that exchange, I thought it would be interesting. But yeah, to me that scene didn't really work. You're talking about when they're like in the field.
Yeah,
and
I specifically liked some of the stylistic choices there. Like they used a really long lens to shoot that guy, which made him look really weird, as opposed to like giving you a lot of emotional access to Halle Berry, like with more of a close up. And you have that almost like a suspenseful version of that trick shot in The Graduate when the woman gets out the car and starts walking over towards her, like it takes forever. Like little filmmaking things like that where it was actually like a real choice with some artistic intent, as opposed to most shots in this movie was just like, well, we see the speedometer, we see her foot, we see her eyes, like that. So I appreciated that there seemed to be some like coherent style for that scene, and for some other of the suspense scenes, I think the suspense was generally better than the action. Because I think we both agree that the car just revving around got boring pretty fast.
Yeah, and it's like you said, though, where those are just juxtaposition because they're passable direction, as opposed to the majority of the movie, they're really making up for a budget issues. They're compensating with the edit in a way that, in some ways, is actually kind of good, because I have to imagine they had nothing to work with. Because the edit, they go crazy where they'll cut on all these weird insert shots, there's random completely, clearly completely reused in stock footage or from another day or whatever, of just like the yellow lines on the highway going by and stuff, and like anytime they want to show Halle Berry has to speed up or go around a car or whatever, clearly they don't have the budget or the framing and the time and whatever to actually show what they had there. So it's a lot of like you said, quick cuts of random bullshit, and it works well enough. Sometimes they even do like weird vignettes where they specifically make the screen go like black around to make it seem like, oh, she's all fucking like, you don't even know what's going on. She's like just trying to get furiously go there, and it's trying to play into the fact that it's truly incoherent. Which I can appreciate, because Baby Driver just shows you everything, and you have no idea what's going on. And this movie doesn't show you anything, and you still don't know what's going on, but at least it feels like it's on purpose. Shots fired.
It is interesting, though, and I think we both noticed this contrast, that the one thing they did get a lot of coverage for was a big car crash at the beginning.
Yeah, they shoot it like 8 times. Like the car just keeps flipping.
It's a really fun, and well, I don't know if it's fun, though, but it's an interesting approach to editing, and it does bring up another issue with the movie, which is the movie's like weird relationship with the collateral damage of what she's doing. Like they definitely show that she has hurt other people's like lives and property by trying to chase these people, and she seems kind of guilty, but her attitude is like, fuck it. Like, how did you feel about that? Isn't that weird that they focus enough on it to then say we don't care?
It's one of those movies where like it doesn't really have anything to say, it just acts like it does, and it puts a lot of philosophical pieces into your hands, and it's just like, here you go. Like, it's not just a dumb action movie, but like it really is a dumb action movie. That truck driver saves her and tells her it's a dead end, which is fucking ridiculous, by the way. What do you mean there's a dead end? Why are you going in that direction then? Like, there's no dead ends on a highway like that. Whatever, that was a stupid scene that's in the second act. But and then spoiler alert, it's one of those movies that's only concerned with morals when it's important to them, and then it completely throws them out the window and wants to have a good time. And it's only concerned with like logic and plot and stuff like that, with like what would really happen in this situation when it's convenient for them to throw a conflict in Halle Berry's face, or inconvenient for them to have a conflict for her because they just need her to be back. Like, there's literally a part very early in the movie where she's chasing them for a while, and if you buy the fact that she doesn't want to ram them off the road or whatever because she's afraid they're going to hurt the kid, totally valid. They even show the kid out the door. But then when she pulls up next to them and the guy says, "Don't follow us or I will kill your son," and she pulls off the highway and starts crying or whatever, like, okay, interesting conflict. How are they going to deal with that? But they don't, because she just keeps driving, and then sure enough she follows them again. Yeah. Like, because that's what the movie is. And stuff like that frustrates me, because it's a movie like this that's trying to get you in the shoes of Halle Berry. Like, what would you do? Like, it's so tense. And I was never there. That being said, I'm probably being a little too harsh on the movie, because overall it's surprisingly watchable, because each moment is really dynamic. It's constantly changing. It's kind of like, for a movie that's just going to be Halle Berry driving a lot, they are forced to come up with a lot of situations of like, okay, where's the car going to go next? Who's she going to interact with? Now finally the police are going to get involved, but why can't the police just help her? Until we finally get to the third act, where the movie just becomes a straight thriller, where she's in a house and they kind of make it more horror genre, and that's where I think the movie just totally, like, I just wanted to leave. It was
that's interesting.
Way too long.
I thought that was fine, because once again I thought the director was somewhat more competent at the horror than other stuff. But like you sort of pointed out there, it's all kind of part and parcel in this type of like pulpy movie, just that it's going to be contrived. I think we got lucky in that we had a really good audience for it, and I think that's what it's going to come down to, is like, if you're trying to see this movie at like a matinee or something, we're going to be alone, it's probably not that great. But if you can find the most crowded showtime for it, or at least get a couple friends together, then you'll probably enjoy it. So that's kind of my overall take, is that it was a decent, like, socially watchable movie.
It's almost campy. It's almost there. Yeah. So if you got drunk, you'd probably have a good time.
So we had The Call with Halle Berry, which people liked a lot. This, which people think is okay. So maybe if they make a third one, they'll either go full camp or they'll get like a really good screenwriter and go the other way. So
we don't know how we're going to wrap these reviews up. We don't know if we're going to do a score system or if we're going to recommend seeing it or not or what. So for now, for this review, Kidnap, I'll say not really worth your time or money. There are definitely better things in the cinema for you to spend your attention on. Just don't do it with like The Dark Tower or anything like that.
So I'm going to be testing all kinds of review systems. I rate this movie a Pluto. It's not quite a planet, but you wish it was a planet. You know what I mean?
So you're saying like 2.5 stars out of 4?
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
So thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to be back tomorrow.
And the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next